Hi everybody, it's Geoff. I just wanted to take a few minutes and share with you something that's been on my heart a lot the last few weeks, and that is the story of the Red Sea. And now we all know about the crossing of the Red Sea and Moses sticking out his staff and the seas parting, and I know Paul did a series on it a while ago, just about the time and how it actually took like all night for the seas to part and the Israelites were on the shore. And I think one of the things that strikes me is that when I went back and read this a few weeks ago, um, it really struck me that the Israelites were very in a very similar situation that we are in now, and that is that they were waiting for God to move and to make a way for something, and all they could do was essentially sit in isolation and wait. Now they had each other, but essentially they were isolated from the rest of the world. They were basically on the bank of the Red Sea, with the Red Sea on one side of them and the army of Egypt on the other side of them, and they couldn't go anywhere. They were kind of stuck there. And I just wanted to show you a couple of points from this that have really encouraged me. And the first is that God knows all this is going to happen. Paul mentioned in his sermon Sunday night that before all this happened, somebody donated money for the camera system and the recording system so that we could put better product and better services online. And that was before we knew that we would have to. And so that's just right there a sign that God knew something was coming, because he put that on someone's heart. And I just like to read you a little bit from here, just to show you, if you go to Exodus 13, verse 17, it says, "When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. God said if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people by the desert road toward the Red Sea." So God knew before that even happened that he was going to need to part the Red Sea, and the Israelites were going to need to cross the Red Sea, because he knew that if they went the easy route, right, there were trade routes back then. There was land routes that they could have gotten into the promised land on. And but God said, look, if they get discouraged, they might turn back. So they need to go this way so that I can show them essentially that I am God. And basically when the people of Israel got to the Red Sea, even though they were guided, it says, they were guided in day by a pillar of cloud and at night by a pillar of fire. And they were guided, so it wasn't just a road. There's something miraculous guiding them as well. And then they got to the edge of the Red Sea, and when they camped, they started to, stress out and get in dismay and they even said, why have you taken us out of Egypt? Was there not enough graves in Egypt for us? Like, have you just brought us here to die? Why have you just brought us here to die? And I think, that could be some of the anxiety that's going on in this world nowadays. We're looking ahead and we don't see where we're going to be able to go. We just see this blockage in the way. And behind us, we've got this angry mob essentially coming after us. In the Bible, it was the Egyptians, and today I think it's kind of like COVID. We've got this disease that's bearing down on us. We don't know what to do. And some of us are saying, what's going on? Like, we're stuck at home. We can't do anything. We can't move. What's the way out of this? And I think God shows us here, he later on, a little bit further down, it actually says, God says to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Lift out your rod and split the water. So even God says here, look, I will make a way. Moses didn't just, walk over the sea and, splash it a little bit and make a way. God did that. And although Moses was called to make the action of lifting his hand, God separated the water. And I think while we're waiting for that, while we're in this isolation, waiting for the Red Sea to part, I think it's important to remember that God still is in this, and God still protected the Israelites. It even says here again, a little bit further down in verse 14, chapter 14, verse 19, it says, "The angel of God who had been traveling in front of them," so it wasn't just a natural phenomenon they were following that God called up. It was an actual angel leading them in the pillars of cloud and fire. And then we see here that it withdrew and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud also moved from in front of them and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness to the one side and light to the other, So neither went near the other all night long. So here we have, while the Israelites were waiting for the fulfillment of God's promise, the separating of the Red Sea, God was still standing in the gap between them and the enemy of the Israelites. And it says not only did he bring darkness to the Egyptian army, but he brought light to the Israelis. So if you look at here, the Israelites, God was literally their light in the darkness. He literally lit up the Israelites and darkened the Egyptians. So in this time that we're isolated and we feel like we might be kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? We can't go outside. We're waiting for this COVID. In some cases, some people are legitimately fearful that they're waiting for COVID to come get them. And I would just encourage you today that God is standing in that gap. The Israelites had to go through that time where they were isolated and waiting for God to move. And I would just encourage you in these days that, we might not see how the Red Sea is going to part yet. We have the ability of hindsight to look at that in the Bible and see that the Red Sea parted. But while the Israelites were sitting on the Red Sea, they didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't see that future plan that God had for them. They just saw what seemed like an immovable object in front of them. And I would like to encourage you today that that object is not immovable, right? God can separate the Red Sea. God can part that thing that's in front of us. And not only that, but as he's making a way, he's going to protect us from that thing that's coming behind us. So I would encourage you, don't give in to fear and anxiety because of this thing that's coming up behind us. But I would encourage you today that God has a way. God will make a way, even if we can't see it right now. So as we sit on the edge of the Red Sea, I would encourage you to be hopeful and look for God to be that light in the darkness. God bless you. I miss you all, and I can't wait till we're together again. God bless.